Hey, it's 11 o'clock. Good morning, gasaholics. I'm Hot Rod Bob, and you've got Gas, the morning edition, coming to you live and direct or recorded, depending on when you're listening to this or watching this. Gas, the Great American Auto Scene, since 1990, your source for automotive information, trivia, and some fun facts. And one of the fun facts, well, maybe trivia anyway, is all manufacturers have their ups and downs and have good and bad issues with their vehicles. Hi, Jay Black. How are you doing? Richard Turner. And Bill, how are you this morning? John Gomes, all the way up in cold country. All right, Ford Manufacturing, one of the leading automotive manufacturers in the world. Place is built tough. They have super employees. They have some of the most stringent regulations on how they build cars and what they are going to do to market them. Lee Iacocca was a leading expert in automotive marketing and was one of the top guys to become the top guy at Ford for quite some time. But Lee, well, he didn't always see it right, at least in the real world. Now, in his world, everything he did was right on target. But in 1960, he did a marketing program that was never done by anyone else before or since, and for good reason. In 1960, Lee Iacocca saw a dream come true. The day that Flora, Illinois became Fordtown, USA. Ooh, that sounds interesting. Well, John Clenard from Ford, a fellow that we work with on the Fabulous Ford weekend at Knott's Berry Farm every year, sent me a note about this huge promotion that Ford had done. And this is the history of Lee Iacocca and Ford. Now, what they did, they took a town, Flora, and it had 1,600 residents. Okay, small town, USA. They put a Ford in everyone's garage or driveway or parking space, whatever the case may be. Each and every resident that had a driver's license got a Ford to drive for a month, free, no strings attached. The goal Lee Iacocca had was, let's get them in a Ford, get them out of their Chevrolets, their Buicks, their Oldsmobiles, and show them what a Ford can do for them. And we'll sell a whole bunch of these cars. No, wrong. Well, what ended up happening is they parked all these cars out in the lot, then released everybody to go after them. It was every model Ford had in 1961. Being introduced in September of 1960, they lined the field with Ford products. They were all white. Contrary to the old story that Henry Ford said, you can have any Model T color you want as long as it's black. Here was every Ford model, Thunderbirds, Galaxies, Fairlanes, Falcons. They were all there. They were all white. There were different body types, styles. There were station wagons. There were convertibles. There were hardtops. You name it, it was there. Sedans, aplenty. The brand new Falcon, wonderful car. Loved the square Thunderbirds. The fastback roof of the mid-year 1961 Ford was there. Oh, I love those 61 Fords with those slanted rear posts. Great little cars, or big cars at the time. So all the cars were painted white. They were all given to these people to drive for a month. Now, I've seen other stories on this too where it said they were only supposed to drive them for a week, but Ford says it was going to be a month. So they gave them to them. Drive it for a month. See what you think. Let's see. Someone's going to give me a car for a month. I'm going to drive the heck out of it. I'm going to find out what this car can do. I'm going to see if I can wear out a set of tires in a month. I'm going to do everything I can to enjoy the heck out of this car. It's not mine. I don't care. And that is what happened. Now, they did sell about 10 or 12 cars, according to Ford records. But the dark side of this was there were some that never got returned. They were missing in action. They were gone. Who knows what happened to them or what Ford did to try to get them back. But it was a exercise in futility. It was a marketing ploy that Iacocca came up with. Did it work? If you heard about it before this, maybe it did. I'd never heard about it before this. But then again, I was just a youngster at the time this happened, so I wouldn't have known anything about it. But then again, no one else did either. Marketing success? No. Sales success? No. 10 to 12 cars sold out of 1,600. Not a good sales ratio. But, hey, they kept Iacocca on, and he moved up through the ranks of Ford Motor Company. And he may have been the guy that helped Carroll Shelby in his efforts with the Cobra, the Ford GT, and the Daytona Coupe. There was some light at the end of the tunnel, wasn't there? All right, now other not Ford flops, but other flops within the auto industry were not quite as grandiose. What we're going to look at now is some of the models that manufacturers came up with that maybe didn't quite hit the mark they intended to. All right, so the people at Edmunds.com say, in the last 15 years, not going to go back as far as the Edsel. I know that's the first thing that comes to many people's minds. The marketing ploy of the Edsel didn't work. Okay, we acknowledge that. No question about it. But here's something you might not have thought about that didn't work. And the reality is, if you're on the east or the west coast, some of these cars were very popular. In the rest of the country, they were ignored. And in this case, let's take a look at number 10 on this top 10 list of vehicle flops. The Honda Insight. Honda Insight a failure? Well, let's think about this for a second. The first Honda Insight was a two-seater. It was a tiny car. It had extremely good fuel economy. It had a battery issue, though. And because of the Honda Insight, California instituted a long warranty for hybrid battery systems. And you can thank Honda for that one. But in the years 2000 to 2000 or 2003 to 2013, in its 10-year run, the two-seat Honda Insight sold 67,000 units. Now, 67,000, that's a good number. But when you spread it out over 10 years, that's 6,700 cars a year. That is a significantly low number for a manufacturer such as Honda. Now, debuted in 1999, and it was the first hybrid to hit the U.S. shores. It beat the Prius by about 7 or 8 months. But it was tiny. It was small. Inside, the fit and finish wasn't the greatest. The power was lacking significantly. Fuel mileage was excellent. It was quirky in that it had skirts that covered the rear tires. But I'll tell you what, I kind of like that little car. It's cool looking. But when it came down to it, the Prius outsold the Insight 18-1. Not the numbers that they wanted from Honda. So this car went by the wayside. In 2002 through 2006, Ford decided to get into the retro car market. And the first thing they chose was the two-seat Thunderbird. I thought this car was neat looking. It had all the styling and the panache of the original two-seat Thunderbirds. It also had a price tag that rivaled anything else on the market, and the dealers marked them up even more. Now, I went to buy one when they first came out, and frankly, the $10,000 price advantage the dealers put on it just didn't make sense, and I passed by. Now, I think about it right now because that $50,000 Thunderbird back in 2002 to 2006 is now in the market between $9,000 and $15,000. They weren't too bad a car, but the problem was Ford took existing components, which saves money and is not really uncommon, but it didn't quite work. It flexed a lot. So they had to brace the chassis once they cut it down and made it small enough to be a Thunderbird. That made it heavy. And with the smaller engine when they first came out, it made it a little sluggish. It didn't handle the way they wanted it to. It was very sloppy in handling. It was quiet. It didn't get fuel mileage, though. Even with the small V8 engine, it didn't get the kind of mileage you'd expect out of it. Heck, my Corvette gets almost 10 miles per gallon more than the Thunderbird did. Well, they sold 53,000 units in its 3-year run. Not too bad, and I don't think Ford ever thought this was going to be a high production vehicle to start with. Would I like to have one of these? Yeah, I'd get rid of my Corvette for one. Chrysler Crossfire. Now here's a car that, well, it was produced during the period when Mercedes-Benz owned the Chrysler Corporation. And they wanted a sporty car, kind of a halo vehicle that was affordable. So they came out with a car called the Crossfire, something you never want to be caught in. Well, the Crossfire. The car, fine. I had 2 of those. They were really nice, in my estimation. They handled pretty darn good. Fuel mileage wasn't too bad. I think I got 27 miles per gallon on the highway with our coupe. We had 2 coupes, and one was an automatic and one was a stick. With the stick, I found that I was shifting all the time. The 6-speed manual transmission and that little buzzy V6 engine, just never could find the right gear for it and was always moving around with that. The automatic did much better. But reliability-wise, the only problem we had was a dead battery in all the years that we had both of them. They were fun cars. Big doors, though. A little hard to get out when you parked in a parking lot and you were in between other cars. But it was good. Power? I thought it was pretty decent for the size of the car. I didn't expect it to be a barn burner or a high-performance car, but it was good. Now, the Crossfire was based on the aging Mercedes-Benz SLK Roadster platform. Hey, that was a good platform. I don't see what the problem was. But the sales never hit the numbers that Chrysler and Mercedes wanted. In the 6-year run, they sold 52,000 cars. Doesn't seem like a bad number to me. And in the guise of a Mercedes-Benz, that's a pretty good number for a specific model. If you look at Mercedes sales in general, they don't have high sales per model. Their combined sales of all vehicles are good, and this was no worse than any other Mercedes-Benz product, I don't believe, but didn't meet with the demand that they expected, and the car went away in 2009. The Chevy SSR. How many remember that? I'm looking for hands, and I don't see any. Hi, Mark McGeorge. You remember it because you're the one that actually drove this vehicle and introduced it at Bob's Big Boy in Toluca Lake, California, before it first came out. The SSR was a retro-appearing pickup truck that really kind of wasn't a pickup truck. It had a retractable roof, so it became a roadster. But once the roof was retracted into the pickup bed, which was not really a pickup bed because it had this tonneau cover that was part of the vehicle that you couldn't take off, and you had to hydraulically lift it up or electrically lift it up, and it got out of and it was all mess. The SSR was kind of cool looking. 5.3-liter engine when it first came out, but the truck weighed almost 7,000 pounds. They had taken the SUV chassis, but because of all the bracing and the hydraulics in this thing, it was heavy. It was sluggish. I had one as a company vehicle for a couple of weeks, and the best I was able to manage was 16 miles per gallon. Now, the first year came out with a 5.3-liter LS engine. 300 horsepower, I thought that was more than enough, but the marketing people and the public said, no, we need more horsepower, more power. So they finally came up with a 6-liter engine. All that ended up doing was drinking more fuel and making it less fuel efficient. The price of these cars when they first came out was nearly $50,000. Today, $15,000 to $20,000 gets you one. In the years that it was produced from 2003 to 2008, 23,000 of these pickup trucks were sold. I don't think that's too bad, considering it was not supposed to be a high-volume vehicle, but not considered a success in the GM eyes. In 2009 through 2012, Toyota decided they would build an upscale hybrid, Now, for those people that didn't want to spend the money for the bigger hybrids, they took a Prius, put Lexus badges on it, changed the grille, and called it a Lexus HS250H. That's a lot of letters, but it didn't hit the numbers. Between 2009 and 2012, they sold 20,000 of these. Now, you would think a Lexus would attract more people, but it was not Prius-like fuel economy. It was lower on power, it was heavier, it was more costly to operate, and it just didn't make it. People buying Lexus didn't want a Prius rebadged, and that's basically what that was. Cadillac XLR. Here was Cadillac's attempt again at making a two-seat sports car. Now, they'd tried a couple of times, the first one being a front-wheel drive vehicle designed in Italy. Didn't go over real well. I did like the styling of the first one, but front-wheel drive, sports car, doesn't go together. And the price was very expensive. The bodies were built in Europe. Now, the next one, they figured it's going to be homegrown. Let's build it on a base chassis we know is good. So they took the Corvette C5, removed the good LS engine, and put in a Cadillac V8 engine. Didn't work. Less horsepower. Heavier car because it's got a retractable roof, so you have to have all the mechanisms for that. Because it was considered a luxury car, they decided it didn't need the big fat tires that came on the Corvette the chassis was designed for. So now it didn't handle as well because the chassis was made for wide tires. They didn't put them on there. The other issue was it was $75,000. It's $20,000 more than the equivalent Corvette. Now, if you're looking for a luxury sports car, you just get the top-of-the-line Corvette, save yourself $20,000, and you get the real thing. It's faster. It's more fun. And you got $20,000 in your pocket that you wouldn't have if you bought the Cadillac. Well, that's exactly what happened. And although Cadillac stopped producing the car in 2009, it took them until 2011 to get them all off the dealers' lots. So in the years 2003 to 2011, 13,000 were sold. Abysmal number for a General Motors vehicle. The Acura ZDX. What was the ZDX? Well, 5,800 of them were sold because no one else knew what it was either. It was built between 2009 and 2013, and some people at the press preview said ZDX stood for Zero Demand Expected. Why? Well, it was an SUV. They cut off the roof and made a fastback out of it. So what that did was eliminate the carrying capability in the back, and you had to be really short to sit in the back seat because the fastback cut down the headroom. It didn't go over well. People didn't like it. It was supposed to compete against the BMW X6, but the X6 had a taller roof. It still looked like someone took an air hose and pumped up a sedan and made it go woof. But it wasn't what the Acura drivers were looking for. So ZDX lived up to its expectations with zero demand expected. Morning, Don Lister. How you doing this morning? And Robin Millar. Good morning, Z. I hope you're feeling better. Next up, another Lexus. This was the LS600HL homely car. Well, you take their big sedan, you stuff a 5-liter V8 in it, and then you make it a hybrid. And with this hybrid technology that adds a lot of weight and expense to the vehicle, you're able to achieve 2 more miles per gallon than the non-hybrid version. Well, that doesn't do much. You gained 78 horsepower, but you lost the ability to get better fuel mileage. It was only estimated by EPA at 2 miles per gallon better than its sister car, the LS460. And when you take into account you had $30,000 more in hybrid componentry, well, it would take you 109 years to recoup the loss of fuel economy. Not a good story. So that car went down the drain. Mitsubishi, known worldwide for the electronic capability of their manufacturing. They manufacture electronics. They are number one in electronics. They are the, Delco of Asia. They came up with an electric car. Now, my wife worked for Mitsubishi, and they had this little egg called the Mitsubishi iMEV. I, little I, M, little I, EV, an electric vehicle. It was a cute little thing if you like the shape of an egg. Even the rear door was rounded like an egg. It was tiny. It reminds me of some of the cars they sell in India that you really don't want to drive, because if you're in an accident, they might as well just use that as the coffin and bury you in it, because it makes a Smart for two look like a big car. It was small. It was produced from 2011 to 2013. They sold 1,400. This is a glorified golf cart. I mean, really, it is a glorified golf cart with doors. That's all it really was. You could only go 62 miles between charges. It took 7 hours to get a full charge. And to go 0 to 60, use a egg timer. 14.7 seconds. Now, I'm not saying the top speed was much better than that either. But at $23,000 before federal subsidies, the 62-mile range and a 7-hour to refire or recharge this car ranked one of the worst electric vehicles offered in the U.S. market. And to think, Nissan now owns controlling interest of Mitsubishi. I think their Leaf was a way better car than this, and the Leaf wasn't much better. Nissan Murano Cross Cabriolet, the worst marketing disaster of any manufacturer of modern time. Why? All right, you start out with a Nissan Murano, which is a SUV. You cut off the roof, lean back the windshield so that your head is at the edge of the windshield. You take a 4-door SUV and you turn it into a 2-door. It looks like it's bloated. It's a convertible. It's an SUV. A convertible SUV? Well, if you think I'm questioning it, so did the buyers. From 2012 to 2013, it was only in production for 1 year, and in that 1 year, they only sold 1,078. This is one of those where you have to ask the question, why? And just because you can doesn't mean you should. And they did. So this was an absolute failure. And who wants a convertible SUV in the first place? 1,000 people in the United States stepped up to them. They're stuck with them. All right, these are marketing flops from their manufacturers. I'm Hot Rod Bob. You got gas. The morning edition brought to you by Service Tech Equipment. Service Tech still open, still helping you out with your service equipment needs. Whether it's service equipment repairs, servicing, or new equipment, they've got what you need. They service what they sell, and they are the biggest in Southern California to get you the equipment you need when you need it, as you need it, to make the money you need in the business. I'm Hot Rod Bob. You've got gas. The morning edition. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Check us out on YouTube, iTunes, Apple. We're all there. You can listen to it in radio format on iTunes and Sketcher and Anchor FM. Also, don't forget our YouTube channels, Two Tired Guys Productions and GAAS, the Great American Auto Scene. I'm Hot Rod Bob. You have a great day. Hi, Craig. How you doing? Bobby Jackson. and Richard Candahead. And he says he'll take a Crossfire. You know what? I would too. I liked it when I had one, or two of them. One with a 6-speed and one with an automatic. They were fun cars. You have a great day. I'm Hot Rod Bob, and you've got gas, the morning edition. Thanks for tuning in. You are a gasaholic.